Can a single component ruin a whole season of Formula One? Today we tell you how Ferrari, one of the giants of this sport, has been caught in a technical nightmare that threatens to derail his entire year, and how he plans to get out of it with a solution that risks everything. Ferrari faced the 2025 season with a renewed promise. After a previous campaign in which they managed to return to the first planes, the SF25 project was presented as the final step to consolidate as an aspiring title. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, was perceived as the final piece of a puzzle that had been incomplete years. In Maranello there was enthusiasm, conviction, and a clear speech. The combination of the talent of its pilots with an evolved car would be enough to challenge McLaren's dominance and the persistence of Red Bull. But as soon as the championship started, that illusion became frustration. From the first race in Australia, the symptoms that something was not right to appear. While the results were not disastrous, the lack of consistency between classification and career generated the first alarms. The rhythm in long batches was erratic, and both Hamilton and Leclerc reported difficulties in finding a stable balance in the car. However, a patient posture was maintained within the team. It was believed that with the progress of the dates and some minor adjustments, the hidden potential of the SF25 would come to light. Nothing is further from reality. It was in the China Grand Prix where everything collapsed. The two Ferrari were protagonists of a catastrophic weekend. Charles Leclerc was disqualified by a technical failure related to the weight of the car, while Lewis Hamilton lost his points after abnormal wear of the flat background. These episodes, beyond being regulatory sanctions, uncovered a much more serious problem. What seemed like a bad strategic management or specific errors was revealed as a structural failure in the car architecture. Something in the design itself of the SF25 was not working, and that forced Maranello to look urgently inside. The technical team, led by Loic Serra, began an exhaustive investigation that led them to an uncomfortable conclusion. The root of the problem was in the rear suspension. From the first kilometers of shakedown in Firen, irregularities had already been perceived, but no one believed that they would be determinants. With the passage of the races, it became evident that the rear of the car was not responding as it should. The car lost stability in braking, was unpredictable in fast curves, and severely committed traction. The SF25 was a quick machine on a return, but fragile in race pace. Ferrari was not only losing performance. I was losing control. Technical research in Ferrari ended up uncovering a problem whose gravity goes far beyond a simple decompensation in the setup. The rear suspension failure of the SF25 not only compromises the general performance of the car in the race, but also has direct implications in compliance with the technical regulations, something that was already evidenced by the sanctions suffered in the China Grand Prix. The structural stiffness of the suspension system is insufficient, which causes anomalous behavior of the car when passing through pianos, braking abruptly, or loading fuel to the maximum. Under these conditions, the car sinks in its rear, altering the aerodynamic flow, generating irregular wear on the flat bottom. This type of structural deformations can also alter the minimum height of the chassis, a parameter strictly guarded by the FIA. The root of the problem is in a risky technical choice. Ferrari decided to maintain the rear pull rod architecture of the SF24 as a basis for the SF25, a bet that at the time seemed logical to preserve data continuity and facilitate integration with the new gearbox. However, the technical environment of the SF25 changed dramatically with respect to its predecessor. The introduction of a new diffuser configuration, together with a redistribution of weight and a slightly narrower body in the rear, made this suspension system not adapt correctly. The result was an unbalanced car which offered good performance in ideal conditions, circuits with little aerodynamic load or with moderate temperatures, but collapsed as soon as the conditions demanded real mechanical stability. This inconstant behavior directly affected the pilots. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton have agreed that the rear of the car has a chronic tendency to destabilize when passing from fast to slow curves, which prevents a clean layout and forces to modify the constantly driving style. Leclerc, accustomed to stop late and transfer weight aggressively, found a car that reacted with sudden survival. Hamilton, meanwhile, tried to adapt, migrating his braking style to a more progressive approach, but did not find consistency either. This lack of predictability makes each return an experiment, forcing pilots to improvise and hindering any attempt to build a sustained career rhythm. The problems are amplified when analyzing the impact on tire management. A car with a poor rear suspension tends to heat up the rear compounds, or in the worst case, to generate a weight transfer that causes premature graining or blistering. This has been evident in Ferrari's long stint, where the rhythm decays quickly and the pilots are forced to stop earlier than planned. In addition, excessive wear of the flat background, caused by this structural sinking, not only limits the useful life of the car during the race, but exposes the team to sanctions. This was precisely Hamilton's case in Shanghai, disqualified by overcoming the plank's allowed wear. The combination of all these factors leads to an inevitable conclusion. Ferrari is fighting a design failure, not against a bad adjustment. It is a crucial difference. Adjust the front wing, modify the rake, or redistribute the weight are normal weekend interventions. Redesign a structural subsystem is something else. It requires time, resources, and, above all, redefine part of the philosophy of the car. The SF25, which promised to be a logical evolution of the SF24, has turned out to be a poorly resolved hybrid between technical continuity and ambition for change. Given the magnitude of the problem, Ferrari has had no choice but to activate an emergency plan that implies redesigning the rear suspension of the SF25 in full season. The solution will not be a simple configuration patch or adjustment. The technical team has opted for a deep review of the system, focusing on the anchors, the geometry of the route, and the materials used to increase the rigidity and guarantee a more predictable response under load. This new suspension could come as soon as the Spanish Grand Prix, but it all depends on the team's ability to integrate change without destabilizing other areas of the car. The operation is high risk, but absolutely necessary to prevent 2025 from becoming a lost year. The redesign of such a complex piece not only affects the suspension itself. Changing this system also forces to review the aerodynamic behavior of the flat background, interaction with the gearbox, and the thermal management of the rear brakes. I could even force the modification of the diffuser design. It is a domino effect throughout the back of the car. In parallel, Ferrari will have to adapt the adjustments, motor maps, and DRS behavior to harmonize the new balance. All this while they continue to compete every 2 weeks and under the pressure of maintaining acceptable results that do not move them too far from the championship leaders. Internal pressure has increased exponentially. Lewis Hamilton arrived in Ferrari with the promise to build a legacy and return the team to the top, but has quickly discovered that the challenge is bigger than I expected. Despite some flashes of competitiveness, the British has had to deal with an unpredictable car and an environment that demands immediate results. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, is going through a complex moment. It is his 6th year in the team, and although he has shown speed, he faces the feeling of being trapped in a project with potential but without execution. Both are committed, but the margin of patience is reduced with each race without podium. In Maranello, they know it. This situation no longer admits excuses or planning errors. Frédéric Vasseur and his technical team are playing their credibility with each decision they make. The investment made in the SF25, both in economic and human terms, does not allow margin for a mediocre campaign. Ferrari's story demands more. The redesign of the suspension is not just an attempt to improve the car. It is a declaration of principles. If this solution works, Ferrari can be re-enchanted to the fight for podiums and even victories. If it fails, you will confirm that the most emblematic team of Formula One remains without finding the way back to glory. Ferrari's story in 2025 is in a critical stage. What began with illusion has become a character test for the team, its engineers, and their pilots. The redesign of the rear suspension is not simply a technical modification. It is a turning point that will determine the fate of a whole season. In Formula One Modern, where margins are so small and the high demands, correcting in time can make the difference between competing and surviving. Ferrari is not guaranteed success with this solution, but at least he has decided to act with decision before it is too late. There is a symbolic value in this movement. It is not just a repair, it is a firm response to adversity. Ferrari could have chosen to settle for administering damage, to wait for 2026. But he has chosen to fight. This attitude connects with the best of its history, with those years where the rampant Cavallino was synonymous with courage and technical ambition. And although the results still do not accompany, there are clear signs that the team wants to recover its identity, the one that has so many times fallen in love with the world of motoring. What remains ahead is a path full of challenges. The season is still long, and if the new suspension works as expected, Ferrari has time to recover ground. There is talent in the car, there is experience in the pilots, and there is will in the team. But there are also increasingly strong rivals, a relentless calendar, and constant media pressure. It is a counter-relage race that goes far beyond the points. It is a battle to demonstrate that Ferrari can still be the protagonist. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think this change in the suspension will be enough to save Ferrari's season? Or is the problem deeper and more structural? Do you trust that Hamilton and Leclerc can carry this project ahead? Or do you think we are seeing another year lost in Maranello? Leave your comment.